You wake up, the alarm goes off, and before your feet even hit the floor, you run through the mental checklist of your life. Good job, nice place to live, people who actually care about you. On paper, you have built exactly the life you were supposed to build. By all objective metrics, you are doing great. So why is there a heavy, quiet emptiness sitting right in the center of your chest? It's not a crisis. It's not a breakdown. It's almost more unsettling. It's just flat. You go through your day performing the role of a functional, satisfied adult, pouring the coffee, nodding in conversations, smiling at the right times. But underneath, there's this nagging loop quietly playing in the background. Is this it? And then comes the guilt. You have absolutely no objective reason to complain, yet you feel completely hollow inside. You played by the rules. You checked every single box. You did everything right. So why does this perfectly fine life feel like you've somehow completely missed the point? There is a very specific type of loneliness in having exactly what you asked for and feeling absolutely nothing. It's an incredibly common state, but strictly taboo to talk about. Why? Because confessing it out loud feels like a form of extreme ingratitude. We all inherit a very rigid psychological script early in life. You check the right boxes, the career milestone, the stable relationship, the decent apartment, the financial security, and in exchange, your brain is supposed to reward you with a sustained baseline of happiness. It's an emotional transaction we deeply believe in. So when you finally cross that finish line, and the expected rush of joy just isn't there, the cognitive dissonance is massive. You don't feel accomplished, you just feel curiously blank. And almost immediately, the self-gaslighting begins. You look at your life on paper, see that it's objectively good, and conclude that if you still aren't happy, your dopamine system must be fried, or your brain is just fundamentally broken. Let's look under the hood of that exact moment. We need to talk about what this specific flavor of emptiness actually is, the biological reason it shows up right when you finally succeed, and why your brain isn't broken at all. So, what do? You build a fortress of noise. You distract yourself from it constantly, turning avoidance into a full-time job. You scroll through your phone for hours, letting your eyes glaze over. You binge-watch shows you don't even care about, letting the dialogue wash over you like static. Or maybe your escape is more socially acceptable. You overwork. You say yes to every project, filling your calendar to the brim simply because an exhausted brain is too tired to feel empty. But the problem is, you can't outrun the quiet forever. It waits for the gaps. It happens right before you fall asleep, when the screen goes dark and you're alone with the ceiling. Or during a long drive, when the podcast ends and suddenly the silence in the car feels heavy. That's when that hollow, sinking sensation creeps back into your chest. And because it's so uncomfortable, it starts leaking out in other ways. You snap at the people you love. You get disproportionately angry over a minor inconvenience. But you're not really mad at them. You're agitated because your internal bandwidth is completely maxed out and you are secretly, deeply frustrated with yourself. Eventually, you just numb out. It becomes easier to go on autopilot. You wake up, you do the work, you have the conversations, you smile when you're supposed to, but you aren't really there. It feels like you're watching your own life happen from behind a thick pane of soundproof glass, present, but entirely disconnected. And then comes the darkest layer of this experience, the guilt. It is like an internal audit you perform on yourself. You look at your life on paper, the job, the relationships, the basic comforts, and the math just doesn't add up. Your inner dialogue becomes a relentless critic. I have absolutely no reason to feel this way. I should be grateful. What is wrong with me? This guilt traps you. Because you feel unauthorized to suffer, you refuse to process the emptiness. Instead, you shove it down into the basement of your mind and begin to overcompensate. You put on the mask. You smile a little brighter. You ask others how they are doing. You meticulously curate the performance of someone who is completely fine. But here is the psychological reality of masking. Sustaining a fabricated emotional state requires an agonizing amount of cognitive energy. Your brain is forced to run two incompatible operating systems at once: the cheerful avatar interacting with the world and the heavy, silent void underneath. This constant internal split slowly drains your nervous system. It creates a profound, bone-deep exhaustion that sleep cannot fix. And the cruelest irony of it all, the better you get at faking it, the more isolated you become. Because when people respond to your performance, you realize they aren't actually connecting with you, leaving you feeling utterly disconnected, invisible, and completely alone, even in a loud room full of people. Here is what is actually happening beneath that numbness. We usually misunderstand emptiness. We treat it like a lack of happiness, which makes us try to fix it by injecting more dopamine, chasing distractions, or simply working harder. But emptiness isn't a lack of happiness, it's a lack of meaning. End quote. For years, you might have been running on borrowed desires. You relentlessly pursued the milestones you were told would make you feel complete: the right status, the right relationship, the perfectly curated lifestyle. You successfully built a life that looks objectively impressive from the outside. But walking through it feels like wearing someone else's clothes. They might fit perfectly, but they aren't yours. Psychologically, that hollow feeling isn't a malfunction. It is a highly calibrated alarm system. Call. When you consistently prioritize external approval over internal alignment, your nervous system eventually goes on strike. It stops applying emotional energy to a routine that doesn't resonate with your actual values. The emptiness you feel is just your brain refusing to fund your own self-abandonment. If you keep hitting snooze on this internal alarm, the emptiness doesn't just sit there. It calcifies. It becomes a heavy, chronic baseline of dissatisfaction. And because your nervous system desperately wants to escape this discomfort, it starts hunting for stronger painkillers. The mild distractions stop working. Scrolling your phone or streaming shows isn't enough to numb out the noise anymore. So, your brain escalates, looking for bigger spikes of dopamine just to feel something. You start buying things you don't even want, chasing the brief, hollow high of a transaction. You might tolerate chaotic, high-conflict relationships simply because the drama mimics the feeling of being alive. Or, most commonly, you disguise your escape as ambition. You grind for the next promotion, the next salary bump, the next milestone, absolutely convinced that this one will finally flip the switch. It's a psychological trap known as the arrival fallacy, the persistent illusion that once you reach a certain external goal, your internal world will finally feel complete. But you already know how this ends. You get the title, you hit the metric, and for about 48 hours, you feel relieved. Then, the exact same void opens back up, demanding to be fed again. Decades can slip through your fingers in this cycle. You spend your prime years chasing a moving horizon, hoping the next achievement will finally fix whatever feels broken inside of you. Until one day, the momentum wears off. You look back and realize the terrifying truth. You weren't actually moving forward. You spent your entire life sprinting on a treadmill, burning yourself out just to outrun your own shadow. We've been conditioned to treat emptiness like a psychological malfunction. We view it as an error code in the brain that needs to be immediately patched with a new goal, a louder distraction, or a cheap hit of dopamine. But feeling empty doesn't mean your life is broken. From a neurological standpoint, emptiness is just a baseline reset. It's a clearing. It simply means the artificial noise has finally stopped long enough for you to notice the silence. The trap is that we try to fix this uncomfortable quiet by desperately chasing happiness, hooking ourselves on fleeting, high-energy emotional peaks. But the psychological opposite of emptiness isn't happiness. It's engagement. It's friction. It's finding something that actually requires your presence in the room. It is completely okay to look around at the life you spent years building, the life you were absolutely certain you wanted, and quietly admit, This isn't what I need. That realization isn't a failure. The emptiness you're feeling right now is not a punishment for making the wrong choices. It's an intervention. The autopilot has finally shut down. And for the first time in a very long time, you are awake.